thank you for sharing your story. It's actually really helpful for me to get to know you and you guys to get to know me a little better. I think that's actually important. So, and we're going to go into the basics of teaching, and I'm talking the basics. This is the basics. And then later in the week, we're going to talk about what constitutes effective teaching. Take a look at how God communicated, or kind of think through how he's communicated to us. Learning styles and multiple intelligences. So, which is under learning styles. So those are things where we're headed toward. So, in teaching, basics of teaching, we're going to kind of do, it's like the bones of the teaching. So I call it basics, or teaching 101. When you think of teaching, what do you think of teaching? What comes to your mind when you think teaching?
Whiteboards.
Whiteboards, okay. Communicating knowledge. Imparting knowledge. Mm-hmm. What would you say is the difference?
You can share the knowledge, or you can give, but if they don't receive it, if they don't take it, then
right.
Are you teaching?
Right.
Whereas if you are imparting into them, what I put into that is that they receive it and they use it, apply it, and whatever, it becomes a part of
right.
what they do.
Yes.
And then you are...
So there's transformation.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Good. Any other guys, any thoughts you guys have? So if you look at your handout, the very top part says 2 words. So this guy, Sidney in the box, Sidney J. Harris from Publishers Hall Syndicate. Oh no, you don't have it. I thought you had it. You have the next box. Okay, so a guy named Sidney J. Harris said 2 words come to his mind: information and communication. And they're often used interchangeably, but they signify quite different things. Information is giving out and communication is getting through. So in his mind, communication is the imparting. So truly to communicate is for a person to receive the information being given, like passing on of a baton. Voila, baton. So I wrote in the communication of information, ideas, and concepts. So that's what is in your box. And it's the act of causing someone to learn so that it is reflected in their life, transformation. And I wrote in their box, we want more than transfer of information. We want to see transformation. And that would be our success as a teacher. All right? If you want to know if you're a successful teacher, then the people are walking out in transformation of the knowledge and things that you imparted. Okay? So that is your basic understanding of teaching. This is not on here, but when you think of preaching, what is the difference between teaching and preaching? Right, what did Phil say?
I would say preaching is always Christ-centered, always about, and it should always connect with the gospel message. Teaching doesn't necessarily have to do it.
Well,
it can.
Yes. Teaching in the context of what I've been doing, which is in Bible study schools and so on, has been. But yes, you can teach not Bible, and that would be still imparting and still transforming people. So yes, absolutely. Good. So this Christ-centered would be the preaching, though teaching can be as well. Anything else?
Bill said teaching was more instruction than motivation, and then in preaching, you're motivating more than instruction.
For me, it's more, the preaching is more of a one-way communication, where teaching is more of a
Two-way.
or at least a more collaborative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Should be, but
right. And and all that is right. I mean, I think that it's just something to think about and to like, I think there's communication is going on and impartation actually is going on with both. Information is going out, but one thing is the style difference. And so you guys have been talking about some of those style differences. I kind of have a metaphor for it. It's like writing, two different types of writing. One is poetry, and one is a story. So the story has a lot more words chosen, but the poem it's very impactful, but it's in a shorter form, if you want to say. And so it's like, to me, preaching is like you have to be very careful about what your words are using, and because you have a shorter amount of time, and then teaching you can have a lot more time, and then you basically have a lot more words to choose from, and so on. So that would be a very basic difference too. All right, so today our focus is teaching. And it's the way you organize and develop and deliver a teaching. The end of the week, you will be expected to give a teaching. And I have the assignment, and I'll give it to you after this, after we kind of go through. Probably won't get through all of it today because it's the time we're at, but I kind of figured that we would be slow, so that's fine. We're fine. So, the first thing that we have, the essential element, is prayer. Okay. Pardon?
I thought it was oil.
You're married to an Italian. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so obviously, the first thing we need to do is to pray and ask God for all parts of it, the topic, about the people that we're speaking to, and His heart for them. What illustrations to give? What's a good introduction? What's a good closing? Every part of it needs to be prayer, and so, yeah, we need to look at that. The other thing you see on there, it says, pray or prepare as if 100 depended on you, and pray as if 100% depended on God. And I made one of these, and somewhere we're going to put it up, because I think this is what you need to have for the rest of your time in BTPS. So yeah, there's another little quote down here by a woman who actually came and taught learning styles to the SBS staff in 1999. She came and taught us, and her name was Rosalie Petter, and she's actually passed now, but what she taught us was always let the Holy Spirit be your first recourse, not your last resort. And I think that's actually really important. So, the second part, consider your audience. So, that's who you're speaking with. They're going to ask these questions of you. Can I trust you? Do you know what you're talking about? Do you care about me? So those are actually, every audience asks that of their teacher or a preacher. And so you have to actually show that you care, that you are trustworthy, and that you know what you're talking about. So, and there's ways to do that, and we'll talk about that too. So you need to get to know your audience and help to better assess their needs and effectively minister to them. So actually, before I met you all, I started asking questions. Charlotte first emailed me your names and where you were from, and not from, but what you were doing. Some of you were on staff, and Tim was from Mexico, and And then I was asking Marnie yesterday about you a little bit more, and then we met Gabe, so that was kind of fun. And so I was doing a little homework. And actually, my questions today were also getting to know you as well. So that's why I do that, is I am trying to get to know you a little bit more to figure out my audience, so I can adjust if I need to. Because how they are, who they are, is going to affect what you say and how you're going to say it. So there's a list here. Things to consider: age, gender, worldview, racial, ethnic, or cultural background. I also put political, because that seems to be a really big one now. Religious background, group membership, like YWAM or Bible school, denominational background, level of education, interests, vocation, present knowledge of the subject, which is another thing I was asking you about, what you knew about teaching, what's your experience. That's what I was doing. How will they use that, what they learn? Physical needs, spiritual needs, emotional needs, strengths, weaknesses, struggles, questions, concerns. Future vision, another question I asked. Hopes, dreams, and literacy level, because if you're teaching someone who has low literacy, which is really interesting, there's a young man that's on our campus now who didn't finish high school, and he has, and I keep keeps coming into my debriefing things, and I'm like, so where are you from? Where'd you go to school? When'd you do your DTS? What kind of schooling have you had? And he immediately goes, I haven't finished high school. And you can tell he just goes, and I always go, oh, ew, why did I ask that? So it's like being aware, because you don't want somebody to feel bad about their experience. So that's what they've experienced. So I have a sheet here, audience suggestions. Carrie Neve now asked. She lives and works in Mexico. Anyway, this is from her. She's like, you're gonna speak to a new believer differently than a backslider who's just returned, or a backslider still unrepentant. Or how about an unsaved person? All those have different ways of what words you're going to be using. Okay? A single mother to a teenager. It could be both. But their needs are very different. An old person who thinks they're too old to need to apply or need to do anything. Like they're just kind of giving up on life. A husband and wife, or a couple, like husbands and wives will be different, and then having a couple also will be different. Parent and child. Person with serious illness, which I can relate now. A person facing financial hardships, loss of job, or eviction. You're going to speak differently into these people's lives. A divorced person, or singles. Those in a relationship moving toward marriage, or young marrieds, right? Students, business owners, employees, those in ministry. Oh my goodness. I have been a part of this spiritual direction course, and many of the people are people in regular workforce, and I'm actually in a supervision group with some of these spiritual directors, and it's so interesting because my mindset is so ministry. I've been doing ministry for so many years, and then I'm rubbing shoulders with these housewives and teachers in the public school, and a retired pastor, and it's the retired pastor and I. It's like we get it because we're like ministry. But these two are like, we don't get that at all. We don't understand what you're saying. And so I have to really choose my words and how I say things. And so it's very interesting. Those who are struggling with doubts about their faith, persons struggling with unforgiveness and bitterness, a person who doesn't like themselves or believes they have value, That's a big one. Someone walking through grief. They've had a big loss or have many losses. Someone angry at God. Someone angry at the church or wounded by the church or YWAM. A nominal Christian. So you can see there's just so many different backgrounds, and we have, as the teacher, need to do our homework to figure those things out, because who they are shows us their need, and we're going to need to speak into those needs. Okay? So that's part of the reason I was asking all those questions. But you can do your homework beforehand. When you know you're going to go to a church and you're going to be speaking at what group, right? And so you can start asking questions from the leader. Tell me about your folks. Tell me about their background. Tell me, as much as you can, so you can do your homework. Any questions? Any comments? Any experiences of, oh, I didn't do that right? I took a Titus team. I've taken quite a few Titus teams to Burma, Myanmar, and I took one guy was like total into university student, like used big, huge university words, and we're working with people. I mean, some of them are university people, but some of the churches weren't, and you're dealing with people who are very low educational levels sometimes. I mean, granted, there are people there that are highly educated, but the particular groups that we were going to at that point didn't. And I kept saying, you've got to come down with your university words. Know your audience. And this is cross-cultural. This is not their first language, so it's not even like they've heard this word at all. So you've got to come down and help them, You know how to make it in words and vernacular that they will actually understand. So, other things to be aware of. I have this written down. It's on bullet point. Size of audience, your physical setting of teaching given. So, like I was asking how many students. Actually, I wanted to. Lovely Charlotte said, "You want to come see the classroom?" And I said, "Yes, please," because you need to see where you're going to be teaching. There's lots of different things. Like I've been in places where I've been in huts where chickens are running through. It's dirt floor kind of a thing. And the sun is beating in the back, and it's like you are a big silhouette. And if you can change things around so that it's not like that, that's a big deal. Also, what teaching material to work with. So, do I have PowerPoint? Do you have HDMI cable? All these things I've already been in communication. So, audience attitude toward the topic, which is some of the things I was gleaning out of you about why you're doing BTPS. And audience's attitude toward the teacher, which is not always attainable. Sometimes you don't have a clue. But part of the things that I was doing was trying to help you get to know me so that you would understand a little bit more about who I am. So